how do you communicate with voters? Because this is like, right, like this was the conundrum coming out of the last election.
Yeah.
How are you addressing this?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? Because so much of the advice that you get when you have a campaign like this is very like a top-down approach, right? Lock yourself in a closet, raise millions of dollars, and then hit everybody over the head with TV. And I'm not saying that doesn't reach people, right? Of course it does. But in really rural communities, people need to hear from their neighbor, right? And I suspect that that's way more important than a 30-second TV commercial. And so I ran last cycle, right? And I was like kind of the first, actually I was the first woman Democratic nominee in the history of our district. So that was cool. And the first one in a long time, probably 6 or 7 years, I got on TV to even just give a message, right? And that's the other thing. A lot of these rural areas, we just have messaging vacuums. We haven't had people talking to people. So that was really important. And we saw we carried 30 counties from the last presidential to 2024 that we actually shifted left in a lot of our counties, 21 of them, and 3 of them we held the line in an environment where nationwide we went about 5 points further to the right in every county. So that was good. But running as a second-time candidate now in this environment, what I've done is just go way more into field organizing. That means breaking this huge, massive district up into regions with field captains who are recruiting volunteers. I call it Amway for Good. And really getting people to have their mail-in ballot, right? So they can mail that in, and really build a grassroots effort, a movement for people to be engaged and involved. That means going to football games, going to farmers markets, wearing our merch, talking to people. I don't think we can underestimate how important that is. And I think we've been just paying a lot of lip service to this type of organizing instead of actually doing it. And what I mean by that is you will see like, hey, I'm a grassroots candidate because my average donation is $20. That doesn't mean anything. It means you have an average donation that's kind of low. It could be like people from all across the country and no one in your district, right? It doesn't tell me your volunteers on the ground, who's showing up for you, who's talking about you, who's amplifying your message, who's like the person in town, in that small town, who's the activist, right? Who's on your team and knocking doors. So I also just think we don't have great ways of measuring really strong campaigns. And so I am running this campaign in a way that I think is impactful. I think empowers people to organize, to talk to their neighbor. And especially right now in a time when people need to do something, when they need to feel empowered, when they need to know they have a voice. Because I can tell you being locked in a closet and just raising money does not do any of those things. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It does. Everyone listening, I need your money and I need your help always, because it will help me pay staff and message. But what I'm saying is that too much of politics has become transactional and not relational. And it is my goal right now to make this relationship based, because that is what matters. And it's what gets us to talk to people. You know, you got to meet people where they're at. I've gone to biker rallies. You know, I go places to see people. I had a guy, I was at a biker rally and he goes, what are you, Democrat, Republican? And I always say I'm an American first, right? Like, let's center ourselves, but I'm on the Democratic ticket. And he looked at me and he looked around and he started laughing and he goes, girl, I'm going to vote for you because you had the balls to show up here. Right. And then he's like, let's take a picture because I've never met a Democrat. And I was like, yes, you have. Right. You have. You just don't know it. Right. Because we're not having conversations we should be having.
Wow. You know, when I was doing the research on my Pence book years ago, and I did not appreciate this before, how often big names, especially in Congress, people go on to major careers. Newt Gingrich, for example, like half of the Tea Party in 2010, that Tea Party wave, are people who have run it's like their third time running. And so, Mike, what did you screw up the first time that you learned? And what's like the biggest lesson from last year?
Yep. That's a great question. So it's what I'm hitting at right now, which is getting this organizing piece and getting it now. So Michigan has a very late primary. The primary is in August, and then ballots are mailed in October. And so there is sometimes this hesitancy to wait to get more people on board after the primary, and that's not enough time. It's just not. And so starting now is really, really important. So that's a number one, is just, it's that. It's also trusting yourself. You know, I, as a first-time candidate, I can tell you there were times when you do like this whole media prep thing, and folks will tell you, well, don't say something this way, maybe say it this way. And it can chip away at your confidence. And this time around, I'm me, right? And I think that we shouldn't, like, I don't know. I think there's this tendency sometimes to just be too careful. And this is a moment that this is an all hands on deck moment, right? This is an all hands on deck moment. Like, our democracy's on the line. We've got people that are scared. We've got people, like, this is a time that we go all out. And so I think I have a lot more confidence this time around as a second term candidate. And I think that's needed.
Yeah. The ability to just feel comfortable.
Cut out the noise. It's the ability to cut out the noise.
Yeah.
It's to cut out the noise.
Yeah.
And find your people, because you will have people that say, I want you to talk this way. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And if you're going to represent your community and your people appropriately, that means that sometimes you're not going to agree with your party, maybe, or you know what I mean? You have to have the confidence to be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a wonky question. How's the quality of the walk list? Because, there's all these concerns about NGP van and, like, the accuracy of the data. You heard these horror stories last year. I have Reed Galen comes on regularly, and he was doing walks in suburban Philly, and they were supposed to be purple districts, but it was like red hats everywhere. and they were working from a shit walk list. Like, it was terrible information. What are you running into? What's your experience?
Yeah. So, yes. And because of that, this time around, we are actually using a different software. I have Van, which I have that to look at, but I also have a guy in my district, Bob Chun. Bob, there you go. I'm going to put your name out there. Who created his own software, Wave Michigan, where he is working to have really accurate, up-to-date data, specifically because of this. So we have two platforms that we're using now to make sure that the effort and the time that we put into walking, doors, mail, whatever, that we are using the best data that we can get our hands on.
Oh,